Alrighty. Well, I did say that there was a possibility that they come out with a new monster, and here's a new monster. The Shadow and Alpha. I'm gonna go over the spawn first and tell you why it's a very expensive spawn, and then go over the monster so that you can kind of get an idea. This has 6 boxes, so that means that you have a much harder time resetting. And I always look at the minimum. So we have, for metals, so we have 600, 200, 400, and then 3 misses. 200 and 400 are both really, really low. They're not going to help you almost at all. When you are doing these types of treasure spawns, usually you want 5 boxes, and you want the lowest one to be the 400, 500. You want one to be like 400, 500, one to be 600 to 800, somewhere in there, and then the reset box to be like 800 plus. That's for 10,000, and that'll normally put you back about 600 gems, right? This one, in order to get the scroll, is 11,000. And after going to if you Google Unison League spawn calculator, you can put in all these numbers and it'll give you a rough estimate about how many gems it'll cost. This spawn will cost you upwards of 800 gems. So it is 200 gems more expensive than a normal spawn right off the bat. And that's not even including if you have bad luck, then it could be up to 1,000 gems. So this is a really expensive spawn. So that's first, right? So let's actually look at the monster. It is a pretty hard-hitting monster. Any monster that hits more than 600 damage, 600 ability power when piercing is going to be pretty good. And this one hits a total of 6 times, which is excellent, honestly. Time slicing for 70 seconds. It's not the highest I've seen. I think 80 is the highest right now. But time slicing this much is pretty darn good. This means that the next monster to attack after Shadow and Alpha will hopefully be attacking into no buffs. So if they throw Priomon, then you time slice them and then they have no buffs left. That's the idea. Sorry, I think I might be coming down with a cold. Well, either that or it's allergies, I don't know. All enemies remove 50 cost. We talked about this. I talked about this in my last video. It depends. This probably won't do much most of the time. There's always a chance that it does something though, so that's interesting. All allies 100 cost. Totally unnecessary. I feel like there are so many things that are better than this. I'm not a big fan of this. Rage and Serenity. So Rage and Serenity gives your character 100% buff to all of their stats. And because you're giving it to all allies, you're giving 100% attack, magic attack, defense, and magic defense for 120 seconds, which is pretty darn good. And what people don't realize is that Serenity is actually a really unique buff. When it runs out, it gives you 100% uni. So you can uni chain a little bit easier. And then, of course, applies a crown. Overall, and we also have Kijin in the back. Overall, though, I'm not really sold on this monster, right? Because there are so many monsters that apply the same types of buffs or do similar types of things. And I don't need this monster. And I don't feel like this monster is that great. Like, it's not worth 800 to 1,000 gems, in my opinion. I mean, looking at like the back stats, rejection resistance, and light dark. Like light dark is so trash. I mean, everyone has way too much light dark Unison defense, in my opinion. And rejection resistance is one of the weaker ones. So I'm not sold on either of these. I mean, it's good. It's better to have two. But like when I was looking at this monster, the first thing I thought was, well, this is a worse version than a previous monster that came out. The Free Himmel, right? Because Free Himmel hits really hard too, but she applies Miracle, which is a one-time. So Resurrection nullifies a killing hit and revives you with 70% of your HP, not CP, right? And Miracle, but the catch to Resurrection is that it can be reapplied multiple times in a battle. There's an old monster. It's a chicken. I don't think I have it right now. It is a 25 cost chicken, and it just applies Resurrection. And so that used to be a really, really popular monster. Miracle's different though. Miracle came out a couple years ago now, and it's a one-time only effect where it resurrects you, but it resurrects you with full HP and full CP, and it cannot be reapplied during this battle. So once it runs out, it's out. I think Miracle is way better than a Time Slice because it helps you live. She gives Free and Himmel give the 100 cost. They give Unigage and Kijin, just like this monster. And they give Dawn, which is exactly like Rage and Serenity. It gives you 100% to all of your stats. And then it gives Crimson Crest, which is the same thing, basically. I guess the other one's crest gives you 100%. This one gives you 50% to your allies. So this one's a little bit weaker as far as DPS is concerned. But it gives you status ailment resistance. And then you basically have the same thing where you have useless secondary stats. But this one gives you fire and time, right? Those are both really unique. I feel like this is basically just the exact same monster as this. You know what I mean? I'm not impressed personally. I'd give it, if you don't have this type of monster, it's nice to have a crest monster. That's my opinion. I mean, if you don't have a crest monster and you have 800 gems worth spending, but just the price of this alone, I don't think she's worth it. I'd say, I don't think they are worth it. I don't know. I think objectively it's probably an 8 out of 10 monster, right? Because actually, no, I'll give it a 9 out of 10 monster because it does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, it is dark, so it'll be pretty easy to defend against. But it slaps pretty hard. It does Time Slice, and it gives Serenity, which I like, and it gives a better crown. Yeah, so that's my opinion on it. 9 out of 10 monster, too expensive, would not recommend spawning. I had people ask me, how does this monster compare to Alpha? I think Alpha is much cheaper. You have a much better chance of getting Alpha. That's my personal opinion. But there are some things about Alpha that are very unique. For example, the Vital Strikes is really, really good. People don't realize that Vital Strikes can be applied twice, right? So you have Vital Strikes that you can apply to your enemy to increase damage, and you have Vital Strikes that can be applied to allies to increase damage. And 120 seconds is excellent. I mean, this one also gives you Kijin and Blessing. I am a huge, huge fan of Blessing in both guild battles and non-guild battles. right? Because it nullifies Unison gauge reduction, which means when you come out of Clash, you can immediately attack and you don't have to worry about losing Uni. You just have to worry about dying. Okay. The second thing that I love about Blessing is that it gives you 50% cooldown reduction. There are a lot of things that give you 50% cooldown reduction, but not a lot of monsters that apply these types of buffs, because they used to apply 50%, like this type of cooldown reduction, as a buff on the monster. For example, there's an old 40 cost fire monster that I love. It was totally underused. This bitch. Don't have to refind her. And she used to apply like this, right? Where it would be on the monster as it reduces ability cooldown times. Okay? But hardly any monster nowadays has this type of text, because I think it's viewed as inferior, but this type of text was extremely rare back in the day, and monsters that had it were really good, right? And they had a lot more monsters with this type of text, but nowadays I feel like you don't see any monsters with this type of text. So I am a much bigger fan of Alpha. I think she does way more unique things. And I also think that abstraction resistance and water light is way more valuable, personally. I think this monster is an absolute 10 out of 10 and can be used in a huge amount of situations. I think that this monster, in PvE, you're basically just throwing this monster for Rage, Serenity, and Crown. 3 things that are really good, but a lot of monsters give Rage. Crown. Here. I guess I should explain something. So, Rage, Serenity, Dawn, and Bubbles that give you stats all overlap with each other in a different way. For example, if you have Dawn, which gives you, like, Dawn is the one that I was showing you earlier, that gives you 100% to all of your stats. That does not stack. This one. That does not stack with any other 100% buffs from the old days. And those include Rage, Serenity, and Bubbles. Okay? Rage, Serenity, Dawn, and Bubbles all use the same stats, so they cannot stack. So if you apply Dawn, and you apply Rage, and you apply Serenity, the maximum number of stat increase is 100%. You're not getting 200%, you're getting 100%. You do get some of the extra bonuses. For example, when Serenity runs out, you get 100% uni. When you attack with Dawn, you get 10% of your cost back. There are secondary effects that you get, but you do not get the 100%. Now, to explain Bubbles give you the same stats. So if you have Dawn, Serenity, and Rage, you're getting 100% of your buffs, even though you have a total of 200%. Now you throw on something that gives you barracks, right? You get a barracks monster, if I can find one real fast. Barracks is a bubble that gives you 100% to all of your stats. Okay? So now you have, apologies for my nose, you have Rage, Serenity, Dawn, and a barracks bubble, which should theoretically give you 300% buffs, but it actually only gives you 100% buffs. And I don't know about exactly why this is, but the way that they do the math for Bubbles is different than the way that they do the math for the Rage, Serenity, and Dawn. I don't know why this is the case. I have no idea. But for whatever reason, Bubbles always do significantly more damage than Rage, Serenity, and Dawn. I think it's because the way that they check the system is they say, if you have Rage, Serenity, or Dawn, then we'll use like your 100% stats in this part of the equation. And I think that if you have a bubble, it uses it in a different part of the equation. And for whatever reason, bubbles, I've tested this many, many times. Bubbles always give you more damage, but they don't give you more stats. It overlaps with Rage, Serenity, and Dawn. So I've tested this before. Bubbles are always the best. That's why I recommend barracks. That's why I think barracks are the best, right? But I don't think that Rage, Serenity, and Dawn are so unique that it's like a necessary thing. So I'm giving this monster a 9 out of 10 because it is nice to have this Rage and Serenity, but there's no bubble. And I also think that Vital Strikes and Blessing are more unique, and honestly, this one gives you a bubble and a field too, with better stats. This is a 10 out of 10 monster regardless. Even in a couple years, this monster will still be useful for its abstraction resistance, in my opinion, for a lot of free-to-play and whaley players. That's not even including other things. So I think Alpha is just superior. That's my opinion. If I was going to go after one of these monsters, I would just go after Alpha. So yeah, I explained a lot of things, but hopefully that makes sense. I would recommend this for whales and for people who really, really enjoy this type of buff, because I personally love Serenity. But do I think it's worth 800 to 1,000 gems? Nope. I'm a pass. All right, catch you guys later.